Think of sonic space as if it were a room. Remember, don't overcrowd the room. And many times I get mixes to do and all the sound elements are really great, but I have to fight to get everything heard because there's not enough space for it. The bands that are really good at understanding sonic space actually choose their instruments accordingly. I never thought about that. When I was in a band, I just said, hey, that's a cool looking guitar. I'm going to get that one. I'm going to play that one because it looks cool. But it may not be the right sonic choice, and every guitar sounds a little different. The use of sonic space relates to the musical style. So musical parts played in different registers, musical parts played in different rhythms, musical parts played in different panning positions, left to right, and front to back. So that's how you get all of your sonic space out of what you do have. Instead of just mixing in 2 dimensions, you can also use front to back, because now you know how to make something sound far away and how to make something sound close. This is what I was talking about, the spectrum of guitars. If you go from the lowest to the highest, and this is totally incomplete, but a Hofner hollow body bass is bottom endy and not have a lot of top end. Fender Precision, Fender Jazz, baritone guitar, which is a guitar that sits between the bass and the guitar. Gibson Les Paul, Gibson SG, Fender Telecaster, Fender Stratocaster, Rickenbacker, which is sort of an acoustic electric sound, and then acoustic guitar. So that's going from the lowest in the spectrum all the way up to the highest. The Eagles, they're genius at this. They actually pick their guitars so that they work really well together, and they've got a lot of parts going on. They all work so well together because one guy is playing a Tele, one guy's playing a Strat, and then you've got the piano. You've got different places sonically where everybody's playing. How you do it is super important to how you fill up the spectrum. Vocal composite and instrument composites. I don't know if people are aware of the technique of making a composite. Let's just say I have to record a vocal. There's a bunch of different ways and techniques to do it. One way is punch-ins. So you sing it down, or you take it section by section, the singer sings it, and then you punch in the incorrect problems. Another way is to do a complete performance, whether there's problems in it or not. Do 4 or 5 of those performances, and then pick and choose from each performance the line that works consistently with an overall performance. There's a lot of different pluses and minuses in both ways of doing things. I prefer doing a complete performance because I believe that the singer has a different attitude as they go through the song. The emotion changes in their voice. If you take it verse by verse, it may be a more perfect verse, but it's not going to be a complete performance of the song. And I think that's really important. The same thing can be said for any instrument performance. You can get 3 or 4 performances and then cut and paste the good pieces into one composite. Lead vocal choice. This is a really interesting subject. I would almost guarantee, before you saw this card, if I went to you and said, what's the most important thing about your lead vocal? You'd say pitch. And I'm here to tell you that's not the way that I view it at all. In fact, it's 3rd on the list, if not further down the list. Most important on the list is believability. How many times have you heard a vocalist, not a great singer, but saying it with such conviction that it really moved you? It's the performance value, believability of what they're singing and how much they really mean it. That really connects with the listener. The second thing that's super important is the timing and the phrasing. So timing is really critical. If the vocalist is always on top of the beat and rushing the beat and too excited, it ends up feeling awkward and uncomfortable. If that's the mood you're going for, that's great. If it's not, it doesn't work so good. Same thing with any instrument. If the guitar player is always on top of the beat because he's so excited to be in the studio, it can really harm the feeling of the groove. So timing and phrasing are something that people notice. People understand believability. That's the first thing they feel, even when they're not paying attention to the song. They think, oh, that person really means what they're saying. The second thing is, if they're out of time and the groove is making you stumble, and it makes you uncomfortable, and you notice that. If somebody sings a little flat, you sort of interpret it as ballooed. A lot of singers do that. A lot of people sing out of tune, and it's perfectly fine. Of course, if you go so far out of tune, it becomes disruptive, then it's not okay. I'm just talking about slightly out of tune. Little flat is more acceptable than a little sharp. You feel a little sharp is uncomfortable, just like being ahead of the beat. Little flat is usually acceptable. People don't even notice it. The issue of pitch has become such an enormous thing for people because auto-tune exists now. But believability, time and phrasing, than third pitch, maybe. Lead vocal consistency, the flow of the vocal, and the attitude and the vibe of the vocal is so much more important than being in perfect pitch. Backing vocal production, that's another area where you can do it in so many different ways. It's how to do it so you get the results you're looking for. For example, you can have a single harmony or a group background vocal, but it needs to support the lead vocal. There are times when one single harmony vocal should be duetting almost with the lead vocal. But in most other cases, if you've got a group background piece, you've got like maybe 3 people and you double or triple their parts, that's like 9 voices competing with the lead vocal. So you absolutely have to filter out some of the fundamental frequencies in the background so that they don't sound as big and so competitive with the lead vocal. Otherwise, you're going to really have trouble distinguishing the most important vocalist, which is the lead vocal. Let's say you're doing a group sing with 3 vocalists and you've got 3-part harmony. 3 vocalists can each sing their part and then double that and triple that. So you've got 3 tracks with each vocalist singing their part on each track. Well, then you get a background that sounds very distinctive, that you can hear the character in each vocalist. So it's like a 3-part harmony and each part has its own character. Or, as we used to do in jingles, because we wanted it to be more generic and more synthesized sounding, you can take all 3 singers and say, okay, everybody sing the same note. And so you sing the same fundamental note, and then the next pass on the next track, all 3 of them sing together in unison, singing the next harmony note, and then the next track, all 3 of them sing in unison on the high harmony note. If everybody sings in unison, then their characteristic spectrum of their voice gets blended in with everyone else's, and it becomes more full on that one note, so you can't distinguish character as much of each note. When each person is singing their own note, you get much more intimate, more connected with each individual voice. Performances, perfect performances can make things very generic sometimes, so be very careful of that. Non-perfect is many times the character of the song or the recording. There's times when I was making records when I said to myself, oh, we can't let that go. That's just going to irritate me forever if I hear that in the song. And we didn't have the budget to perfect everything. And naturally, 9 times out of 10, nobody's listening for it anyways or even hears it. They accept it for what it is. I listened to Beatles performances for years and years and years, studied their production techniques. There were songs that I listened to hundreds of times and never noticed things that after I read the book of what they did and how they did it, then I went back and listened and I'm like, I never heard that before because I just accepted the song for what it was. Heard it on the radio, heard it on my headsets, and accepted it for what was being presented to me as being what it is. There's songs when they had to record straight to 2-track and they had to edit to make things work, and they cut vocals off, just like chopped them. While they were still singing, just cut them. That's something we would never do today, but you don't notice it. Production style. If you are a record producer or a music producer, and you're working with all sorts of different acts, and your job is to just produce, maybe engineer and produce, coming from that perspective where you're not the writer, you're not the artist, and you're taking other people's visions and trying to execute them and make what's in their head come true to life. There's typically 2 different types of producers. The transparent type of producer that takes the artist for who they are, accepts what they do musically, and tries to further what they're doing into being better and push them along to be more themselves. And then there's the other type of producer that interjects themselves. I think if you listen to anything Mutt Lange did, you go, oh, that's Mutt Lange. Listen to Jeff Lynne. Not to say that I don't love their styles. I do love their styles. But I loved Jeff Lynne when he was in ELO. And then when he produces anyone else, it ends up sounding like that artist with ELO. He just is so much who he is that it just comes through in everything he produces. But then there's other producers, they can go from style to style to style, and you never really know that it's the same guy that did it because it really has a unique character of the artists themselves. Every day is a new day, and every artist is a new artist, and you have to take what they're doing and be the support for them as an artist, rather than being part of the band when you're working with them. 2 different approaches. It's up to you guys how you want to approach it.